My vision for the organization, and I am so excited about this, is acquainting a new generation of conservative women with the incredibly inspiring role models that we've discussed today, telling the true story about who Phyllis Schlafly was, and letting people know about this legacy of faithfulness, and letting those faithful grassroots activists, Eagles, equip a new generation to be as effective as they were and to build on those successes.
Welcome to Engage with Eagle Forum, a podcast to encourage the modern day woman in her vital role in shaping society. I'm one of your hosts, Tabitha Walter, the political director of Eagle Forum, and I'm joined by Eagle Forum's executive director, Kirsten Hasler.
Hi, y'all. Today we are joined by Colleen Holcomb. You may remember her from our Mother's Day episode where she shared her journey of being the not-so-typical mom to 3 non-bio children and 1 in heaven. If you haven't listened to that episode, don't forget to go back after we're done with this discussion. It's an episode that will really warm your heart. Colleen joins us in a new way today. She's a former executive director to Eagle Forum and a board member, but recently she stepped into the role of our president. Colleen, we are so thrilled to have you as a boss, mentor, and friend. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be working with you and so thrilled to be on the podcast.
Well, Colleen, will you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you found Eagle Forum?
Sure, thank you. It's funny, I attended Wellesley College, which I grew up in the Midwest, and I in a working class family, and I knew I wanted to somehow impact society. I went to Wellesley College because I thought that's what you needed to do, to go to a nice Northeastern school. I had no idea it was a bastion of feminism, and I was extremely conservative. I had no idea of the political divide on campus. I know it's much worse now, but and I found Phyllis Schlafly's writings and started reading her writings, and she was a big help because I was certainly a minority on campus. And then throughout my life, I went to law school and did some things, but I just had a heart for Eagle Forum. And throughout the years, I would contact Phyllis and say, I'd love to volunteer with you. I'd love to work with you. And one day she called back and said, would you like to be the executive director of my DC office? So I said, sure. And then I got to know the Eagles. And then once you get to know the Eagles, you're in.
Mm-hmm. So when you first began working for Eagle Forum, you worked alongside of Phyllis Schlafly. What was that like?
I did. That was a tremendous honor. Phyllis is amazing. Phyllis was a full 50 years older than I, and she absolutely wore me out. She's just incredible. The most brilliant woman I've ever met, so energetic, so positive, so encouraging, just really fascinating. And it was amazing when Phyllis lived in St. Louis and would come to DC, and it was just so awesome to see how many people would go up to her and say, I came to the conservative movement by reading A Choice Not an Echo. And people of all ages, a lot of young people too. So that was really a treat and a great blessing to get to work with Phyllis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now you mentioned the state leaders, and you alluded that they're pretty wonderful women. Can you tell us about what it's like working alongside of them as well?
They are just amazing. I remember the first Eagle Council, that's a gathering that we have every year. I was just astounded. This was back in the early Obama administration. It was when the stimulus came out, right when it came out. So nobody really had an opportunity to read it yet. We had one presentation about some information that was in the stimulus. And by the time I got back to my hotel room, I was already getting alerts from the Eagles urging people to take action with very specific, reliable information. This is an incredible group of women who love their families, love our country, and who have really dedicated their lives to volunteer service. They're brilliant. They could be succeeding in any area of life that they want. And we're thankful that they've chosen to succeed in this area of volunteer conservative activism.
So since we've talked about the Eagle Forum leaders and we've talked about Phyllis, is Eagle Forum primarily a women's organization?
We get that question a lot. That's a really good question. It is, our membership is primarily women, largely because Eagle Forum was founded in the battle against the so-called Equal Rights Amendment, and that attracted a lot of women, and it was the women who really won that battle to keep the Equal Rights Amendment from being ratified, because women said, I don't want to be drafted. I don't want to be forced out of my home where I'm enjoying taking care of my children into the workforce, things like that. But over the years, we certainly welcome men. We love men. We work closely with men, and we have had some state leaders. I don't think we have any now. Actually, I think we might have one who's a man, but so we certainly welcome men, but it is predominantly a women's organization, and that's cool too.
Yeah, you touched a little bit on successes. So in your experience with Eagle Forum throughout the years, what do you think have been some of our successes, and what has contributed to that in terms of the organization?
Well, how long is this podcast? There have been so many successes. It's really remarkable. Certainly the first success was winning the absolutely impossible battle against the Equal Rights Amendment. That was an amendment that was headed for certain ratification, and Phyllis simply told the truth about what the amendment would do and how it would impact women, and was able to raise up an army of, again, primarily women, so was able to defeat that amendment. There have been so many throughout the years we've been involved in, certainly battles for and against certain judicial nominees. Hillary Care was a big, of course, now Obamacare is the law of the land, and we were engaged and we fought a valiant fight against Obamacare and continue to try to work to point out the shortcomings. But Hillary Care, that was was defeated largely because of work that Eagle Forum did in coalition, in partnership with with many other organizations that we work with. Another one of the big battles was the fight against federalized daycare, which would also take our children out of our homes and put them under government control, which was a big concern. And Eagle Forum was very instrumental in that battle. Sexual risk avoidance education, that was a tremendous battle. So there have been so many, some that many people wouldn't know about, and there are many issues that Eagle Forum deals with that a lot of people might not know. Things like battling to save the Edison light bulb. That's something that was very important to Phyllis. Phyllis had a very unique understanding of how America is unique because we protect intellectual property, and the Thomas Edison light bulb is a great symbol of that. It's also a nice soft light that a lot of us like. So saving the Edison light bulb we're particularly proud of. So there have been so many over the years, and it's just a great honor to be a member of such an effective organization.
It's so funny because everything that you touched on is still policy that Tabitha and I are working on today. It just continues to revolve and go into circles.
It is amazing. I was away for a while and I thought, wow, the bad ideas just never go away. It's just amazing how they continue to recycle bad ideas. But so we're so thankful that you're there. And,
Well, Eagle Forum doesn't just touch on federal issues. We have strong chapters who do a lot of state and local level policy work. So how are these chapters organized?
You're right. Eagle Forum, in fact, was founded at the state level because it was founded in the battle against the Equal Rights Amendment, which was fought at state legislatures. Mm-hmm. So as Phyllis organized these activists, they developed state chapters. And so many of our leaders are well known at their state capitals. They're known to be incredibly well informed. They got involved early and just stayed involved over the years. The different states are organized differently. One of the great advantages that Eagle Forum has is that we're not a top-down organization. Phyllis was never a micromanager. She trusted her Eagles because she knew that these were incredibly brilliant women. And we support federalism, and we know that there's not just one approach that works. So we have state leaders in most of the states who run the chapters in accordance with what they need in their state. I know, for example, Texas is a huge state, so there are multiple chapters throughout the state. So I would encourage anybody who's interested, please contact us, and we would love to get you in touch with state leaders in your state.
That's wonderful. And I know that we lean on the state leaders a lot because they have so much knowledge. They are right there in touch with people who are affected by federal policies as well. And so it helps to glean from them to know what our next steps should be.
It really does. And I think that's one of the things that makes Eagle Forum so unique in the world and in the conservative movement in particular. We are an organization that's based in the states and not in DC. it's so important. We have you, and we're so thankful to have you in DC watching policy, but it's so important to have that input from the state leaders to not only, now you all inform our state leaders and they mobilize people on the ground to contact their members of Congress and their senators. But it's also important too, Eagle Forum is also very active in helping to elect conservatives. And we really need that input, as you mentioned, from our state leaders, whether it's lobbying and knowing how certain policies affect the people on the ground, or knowing the truth about candidates and who the best candidates are to support. So it
Absolutely.
really is, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are currently in the midst of an election year. And so a lot of our listeners are weighing their options on who to vote for this year, not only for president, but for local leaders as well. Can you talk a little bit about how Eagle Forum takes part in elections?
Yes, Phyllis, I think, was very wise to, as we mentioned, have an organization that was organized and really decentralized, so focused at the state level, but to have a presence in DC. And she was one of the first conservative leaders to form a political action committee because she felt it was so important to mobilize support around people who shared our values. Eagle Forum PAC is unique. We have what was a 75 question survey. Now I think it's over 100. So we very carefully vet candidates on the basis of the survey, on the basis of personal interviews, and again, on the basis of the invaluable information that we receive from our state leaders. I'm sure you've seen this. I know during my time in DC, I would see candidates who were absolutely beloved in DC, but who didn't resonate very well in their hometowns and in the areas where they needed to get votes. So it's so important. And I really appreciate Eagle Forum because we have that that holistic approach to candidates.
Yeah, so we do have the PAC, the Political Action Committee. And can you explain what that exactly is, and then why it's beneficial for folks to give to a PAC rather directly to a campaign?
Absolutely, yes. It's really important because, and we certainly encourage people to give to the candidates of their choice. At the federal level, there are limits to how much you can give to certain candidates. So if you're concerned about reaching limits, which and you've already given the max to the candidate of your choice, and you want to continue to support conservative candidates, you can give to a political action committee like Eagle Forum. We do give direct campaign contributions directly to the candidates. Another thing that's really helpful is if you live in an area where you can't elect a conservative and you don't have any conservatives in your area to support. I know that was an issue, sadly, in Northern Virginia. But you might not be able to vote for a conservative, but you can certainly support them through political action committees like Eagle Forum. And one of the reasons I think Eagle Forum is a particularly good investment is not only do we vet the candidates so thoroughly, but you're there to hold them accountable. And then we have our Grassroots network to hold them accountable. So again, we have that cyclical relationship from the grassroots to the Capitol to make sure that we follow through in holding those legislators accountable.
Absolutely. And it's fun on our end to get to know the really good candidates. And when we get to know them while they're running and then they are elected into office, we already have that relationship with them to get good policies passed. So that's always beneficial.
That is so much fun. And it is really neat to see because there are some candidates who, really were extremely grassroots candidates. I've heard several over the years say there was a sweet lady from Eagle Forum who really helped me get elected. And so many legislators have that story. And it is really good to form that relationship from the beginning, to get to know the legislators, make sure they pick good staff. So all of it is so important.
Right.
And that's what enables conservatives to have a voice on Capitol Hill. And we're very proud of that.
On the same subject of election years, Eagle Forum has always been involved in the GOP platform and conventions. In fact, this is how I first met you, because we were working on the platform together. I was with a different organization, and then we teamed up, and we were able to help craft the 2016 platform, which has been known as the most conservative platform ever. So it got a lot of praise, it got a lot of attention. So one of your first orders of business as president of Eagle Forum was on the subject itself, on the platform. You have sent a letter to the president and to Republican National Committee Chairwoman regarding your thoughts on the upcoming platform. Can you talk about why platforms are important and how Eagle Forum has been an influence in the Republican Party?
Sure, thank you. The Republican Party platform was the territory that Phyllis Schlafly felt was really her niche and an area that she felt like she could impact. She has probably attended the most political conventions in history, so she really knew, she found them fascinating and really knew how those processes went. Conventions are a unique animal, but Phyllis felt that it was extremely important that the constitutional, it is a platform, it is the very basis for the foundation of what we believe. And it just, now Eagle Forum is a bipartisan organization, but it happens that the Republican Party tends to reflect more of the beliefs that we have. So that is the ground where Phyllis chose to work. And over the years, now the platform is an entirely grassroots document, and Phyllis has encouraged the leaders to really get involved, and leaders throughout the years who have either been with Eagle Forum or associated with, or philosophically aligned with us, have gone through the process, and it is not a glamorous process. It's extremely tedious to get elected as delegate, and then you have to get elected to the platform committee. And then it's a very arcane process, and Phyllis described it as extremely democratic. So it's a wonderful American and party tradition. But Phyllis brought in some excellent leaders to teach those people who were philosophically aligned with us to use parliamentary procedure and to be able to write clear language for amendments that really reflected the grassroots preferences and principles that they wanted to see in the party platform. So that's something Phyllis made it her mission to be sure that the Republican Party was the pro-life party. And over the years, we've dealt with many issues, immigration, certainly economic issues, to make sure that America maintained its place as a leader in the world. So that's something we've been extremely proud of. In fact, Phyllis endorsed now President Trump, and it was controversial. That was a very contentious primary, and Phyllis said, Donald Trump gave me his word that he was going to uphold the Republican Party platform, and he really has. So platforms, people, just saw an article that said people are naive if they think platforms matter. No, platforms absolutely matter. That's the document that we have that differentiates who Republicans are and what Republicans believe and what Democrats believe. It's also a document that we can use to hold our legislators accountable. And we're so thankful that President Trump has kept his promise in so many important ways on pro-life issues, certainly on economic issues, simplifying the tax code, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, in Israel to Jerusalem. I mean, some really incredible policy decisions. And all of that comes from the grassroots. So we're so thankful, and that's an area that we need to make sure it stays strong and continues to reflect grassroots values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Eagle Forum is a bit different than other conservative organizations in a couple ways. So one being that Phyllis made sure that the structure wasn't top-down. So women who worked for Eagle Forum were equipped and empowered to start their own state chapters or even different organizations. Phyllis's daughter Anne told me when I first came on board that once you're an Eagle, you're always an Eagle. And, every organization kind of says something like that. But little did I know that it seems true. Everyone can say, I've been an Eagle for like 25 years. There's generations of Eagle. It's just fun to see the network and community that's come from Eagle Forum. So you have stuck around for quite a while. How have you felt empowered by Eagle Forum?
Oh, well, and I'm one of the newbies comparatively. It's extremely humbling to be coming in as president after Uni Smith, who I think has, if not 50, at least close to 50 years of strictly volunteer service. And once you see the Eagles in action, you see how intelligent they are. You see how kind and loving they are. You see that they're motivated. There are no egos. They are motivated by principle. They're extremely passionate. They're brilliant. They're committed. They are absolutely committed to doing their homework. They make sure that their statements are correct and that they maintain their credibility. And overall, they are just extremely faithful. And that is uncommon in this world. When you see that kind of faithfulness, it can't help but inspire faithfulness in you. So when, we always say, when Phyllis would call and say to do something, you do it, because Phyllis inspired that kind of faithfulness. So does Uni, so does Ann, so do all of the state leaders who have been so faithful. And again, have endured not glamorous, have not risen to glamorous positions, but have endured persecution and some really terrible things, but have said it's all worth it because they care about our country, they care about our families, and they're determined to be faithful.
Mm-hmm. And Eagle Forum takes on a ton of issues, whereas a lot of other organizations are single issue focused or maybe work on only a group of issues that are all related. So our leaders have been able to equip and mobilize the grassroots quickly because of this. Can you talk about these issues and how we train our grassroots?
Sure, yes. Eagle Forum is an extremely agile organization because, as you mentioned, we're not top down. We don't have a big structure. For example, when the two of you on Capitol Hill, and I'm so thankful you were watching, particularly during this COVID pandemic, when you saw that liberals were trying to push through a proxy voting bill, you immediately took action. You don't have to wait for it to go through a chain and go through all kinds of processes. You took action, you let people know, and that was really respected, and that achieved some results. And I'm so thankful for that. Having a wide breadth of issues that we cover is it's a reflection of who Phyllis was. And really, I think Eagle Forum tends to attract people who are holistic conservatives, who think it's absolutely vital to maintain all three legs of the conservative stool. We have to have strong families, we have to have a strong national defense, and we have to have a strong economy. And all of it, because if you're not safe and you don't have jobs, that dreadfully impacts our families. So it all works together. And that's so important. That's something that Eagle Forum leaders really tend to get. And it tends to make the organization extremely effective because the Eagle Forum leaders are known to be active and to be knowledgeable on a wide range of issues. So it enables us to form coalitions with lots of other organizations, and it just really helps overall.
Yeah, and I think we have the best conversations within Eagle Forum because we may not know a lot on one issue, and so we can ask someone else. We may maybe need to strategize a little bit, and so we go back and forth and figure out how to get things done. And so that breadth of issues allows us to have really great discussions within our organization. So I've really enjoyed that since being here.
It does. It makes for, I love having partnerships with other organizations. And that's right. Our focus is making sure that our grassroots activists are equipped. And I'm sorry, Kirsten, I don't think I answered your question, but the way we do that is through the legislative alerts that you all write. And at different times we do different things. We take direction from our state leader. I know when I was in your position back in the early 2000s, we did a lot of grassroots activist training in the states, as was requested by our state leaders. We have regular meetings and conventions where we bring in excellent speakers. And that's right, that enables Eagle Forum. I think for our donors, they see Eagle Forum as a good investment because we run a streamlined organization. We're able to do a lot because we work together with other organizations. Our materials are known to be extremely reliable, but we rely on experts. We don't feel like we have to be the experts. We don't have to own issues. We just want to be effective in our advocacy on the issues that are important.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, although we just discussed what makes us stand out, at the same time, we love partnering with like-minded organizations and influential leaders to accomplish similar goals. What has garnered the respect for us among our fellow conservatives, in your opinion?
Well, I think that you're exactly right. And I think people realize that Eagle Forum is not an organization that's there to come in and fundraise on something that other organizations are there to do. We're there to help. We're there to tell our grassroots what opportunities there are. We're there to make sure that we abide by the Ronald Reagan rule. We don't care who gets the credit. We just want to make sure that the right policy is enacted And the more we can work together, the more effective we can be. And it's a real blessing when we see what we can bring as Eagle Forum to other organizations. Other organizations might say, this is our area of focus. So I'm so thankful that Eagle Forum can help, because you can speak on issues that we know impact our issue, but that our donors or our readers might not understand. So the more we work together, the more it helps everybody, and the more it empowers us to empower our grassroots.
Yeah, and like you said, we like to work bipartisanly when we can, because we are a bipartisan organization. And so where we have so many issues, there are some that we can actually agree with Democrats on, or libertarians, or across the board. And so that really broadens our view and our donorship and our partners to all work together for one similar goal.
It does. And I found that was some of my favorite work. Really, my favorite part of Eagle Forum is the relationships with the Eagles, with the other organizations. This is a great group. When you're working with the conservative community, these are people who love America, who love our families. So these are the kinds of people you want to hang out with. But it is a lot of fun to work with other organizations with whom you might disagree. But it's incredibly powerful when you have Eagle Forum and another organization that's completely on the other side of most issues, but where they agree, legislators really take note. So it is a lot of fun, and that's just all part of making sure that we have sound policy, part of the democratic process.
Right. So to wrap all of this up, I'd like to ask you, what are the goals of Eagle Forum now, and what is your vision for the organization?
Well, I'll start with my vision for the organization. Our first order of business is re-electing a conservative president and restoring the conservatives to the majority in the House of Representatives, maintaining and hopefully building on our majority in the Senate. And my vision for the organization, and I am so excited about this, is acquainting a new generation of conservative women with the incredibly inspiring role models that we've discussed today, telling the true story about who Phyllis Schlafly was, and letting people know about this legacy of faithfulness, and letting those faithful grassroots activists, Eagles, equip a new generation to be as effective as they were and to build on those successes. So I encourage anybody listening to this podcast, please be sure you subscribe to the podcast. This is a tremendous content you ladies are providing. And please join us at Eagle Forum. Please contact Eagle Forum. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and we would love to get you connected.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen. We're so happy to have you join us at the helm, and we're looking forward to what's next for Eagle Forum. Mm-hmm. And thank you for listening to this episode of Engage with Eagle Forum. Please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes, and share with your friends. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and engagewithEagleForum.com. From your house to the State House to the White House, this is Engage with Eagle Forum.